The phone screen cast a sickly blue glow across Marcus Blake's face as he sat on the bathroom floor of his cramped Los Angeles apartment. His hands were shaking so badly that typing felt like trying to thread a needle during an earthquake. 3:12 a.m. The time seemed significant somehow, like a marker for rock bottom. In the bedroom, 6-month-old Sophie had finally stopped crying. 45 minutes. That's how long his baby daughter had screamed tonight. Hungry, inconsolable, and completely dependent on a father who was failing her in every measurable way. Marcus's bank account mocked him from the screen. $8.47. The formula can in the kitchen was empty. The last bottle had been given 3 hours ago, watered down more than the instructions recommended because he'd been trying to stretch it. Tomorrow was Thursday. His unemployment check wouldn't hit until Friday morning. Assuming there were no delays, assuming the system didn't glitch like it had last month. Pride was supposed to be important. His grandfather had drilled that into him growing up in South Carolina. A Blake man doesn't beg, Grandpa Joe would say, sitting on the porch in his work boots even though he'd been retired for a decade. A Blake man figures it out. But Grandpa Joe had never held a hungry baby at 3 in the morning with $8.47 in the bank. Marcus scrolled through his contacts, his vision blurring with exhaustion and something that felt dangerously close to tears. His sister Maya was in Seattle, barely making rent herself. His buddy Jerome from the army had 3 kids of his own. His ex-girlfriend Kendra, Sophie's mother, was somewhere in Florida with her new boyfriend, having signed away all parental rights when Sophie was 2 weeks old. There was one number he'd been avoiding. Tommy Chen, his old supervisor from the construction company that had laid him off 3 months ago. They'd been on decent terms, and Tommy had always said, "If you need anything, reach out." Marcus started typing before he could talk himself out of it. "Hey Tommy, I know it's late and I hate asking. Sophie's out of formula and I'm tapped until tomorrow. Could you spot me $30? I'll pay you back Friday with interest. Sorry to bother you." His thumb hovered over the send button. This was humiliating. This was exactly what Grandpa Joe would have been ashamed of. But Sophie needed to eat. He pressed send. Except his exhausted, trembling thumb had selected the wrong contact. Not Tommy Chin. The name above it, Catalyst Ventures, interview contact. Marcus stared at the delivered notification, his stomach dropping into his shoes. No. He'd sent a desperate plea for baby formula money to a venture capital firm that had interviewed him 2 weeks ago for a junior analyst position. A job he'd probably already not gotten, since they hadn't called back. And now he'd just torpedoed any remaining chance by revealing he was a broke single father begging for money at 3 a.m. Marcus dropped the phone like it had burned him. He pressed his palms against his eyes, taking shaky breaths that did nothing to calm the panic clawing up his throat. This was it. This was the moment when his already terrible situation became unsalvageable. 12 miles away in a penthouse overlooking the Pacific, Natalie Morrison couldn't sleep. This wasn't unusual. As the founder and CEO of Catalyst Ventures, she'd built a $400 million investment firm by outworking everyone else, which meant sleep was a luxury she rarely indulged in. At 38, she'd achieved every professional goal she'd ever set. She'd been featured in Forbes, spoken at TED conferences, mentored dozens of successful entrepreneurs. Her portfolio included 3 companies that had gone public and 2 that had been acquired for 9 figures. But tonight, like most nights, she sat alone in her minimalist home office, reviewing pitch decks by the light of her computer screen, wondering why none of it felt like enough. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost ignored it. Her personal cell was supposed to be private. But something made her look. The message loaded, and Natalie read it once, twice, 3 times. This wasn't spam. Scammers didn't ask for $30. They didn't mention formula or unemployment checks. They didn't apologize for bothering you. This was real desperation from a real person who'd clearly sent it to the wrong number. Natalie pulled up her laptop and searched her firm's interview database. Marcus Blake. Interviewed 2 weeks ago for a junior analyst position. Former Army logistics specialist, strong analytical skills, construction management experience. The notes from HR said, impressive candidate, but seemed distracted during interview. Recommend second round. They hadn't called him back because they'd been debating between him and another candidate with an MBA from Stanford. Natalie looked at the message again. Sophie's out of formula. A 6-month-old daughter. A single father working construction before getting laid off. Sitting somewhere at 3:12 a.m., desperate enough to ask for help from what he thought was a former coworker. She typed back before she could overthink it. Wrong number, but I can help. What's your Venmo? The response came within seconds. Oh God, I'm so sorry. I meant to text someone else. Please just delete this. I'm mortified. Natalie stared at her screen, thinking about the man on the other end. Thinking about pride and desperation and how those two things were constantly at war in people who were struggling. She typed, don't be embarrassed. Everyone needs help sometimes. Baby formula isn't optional. What's your Venmo? There was a long pause. Natalie could picture him on the other end, debating, weighing his pride against his daughter's immediate needs. Finally, at Marcus Blake 87. But seriously, you don't have to do this. I don't even know who you are. You'll figure it out tomorrow, Natalie typed. For now, take care of Sophie. She opened Venmo and sent $300. Not 30, 300. Because if this man was desperate enough to ask a near stranger for money at 3 a.m., he probably needed more than just one container of formula. He needed diapers, probably. Maybe other bills were overdue. Maybe $300 wouldn't solve everything, but it might give him room to breathe. Her phone immediately lit up with a call from the same number. Natalie hesitated, then answered. Hello. The man's voice was rough, thick with emotion. You sent $300. You meant 30, right? I need to send back. I meant 300. But I asked for 30. And I decided you probably needed 300. Natalie kept her voice gentle. Accept it, Marcus. Buy formula, buy diapers, pay whatever bills you're worried about. Consider it an advance. An advance on what? Come to my office tomorrow at 10 a.m. Catalyst Ventures, 15th floor of the Wilshire Tower. Ask for Natalie Morrison. There was stunned silence. Then, you're from Catalyst? From my interview. I'm the CEO, and we need to talk about that junior analyst position. 10 a.m., Marcus. Don't be late. She hung up before he could argue. Natalie sat back in her chair, staring at her phone. This was impulsive, unprofessional, probably a dozen kinds of inappropriate. Her board would have kittens if they knew she was sending money to job candidates and making hiring decisions at 3 a.m. But something about that message, the raw desperation, the apology, the specificity of a 6-month-old named Sophie, had cracked something open in Natalie's chest that she usually kept carefully locked. She'd built her entire career on calculated risks. Maybe this was just another one. Marcus stood outside the Wilshire Tower at 9:45 a.m., wearing his only good suit, the one he'd bought at Men's Warehouse for his grandfather's funeral 2 years ago, and holding Sophie in one arm. His neighbor Rosa had offered to watch the baby, but Marcus had explained he might need to bring her, that this meeting was complicated. You look handsome, Mijo, Rosa had said, straightening his tie. And that baby, she's your strength, not your weakness. Remember that. Now, standing on the sidewalk, Marcus was seriously considering just walking away. This was insane. The CEO of a venture capital firm had sent him $300 and demanded he come to her office. This was either the best thing or the absolute weirdest thing that had ever happened to him. Sophie gurgled and grabbed his tie, and Marcus made his decision. He walked through the glass doors. The lobby was all marble and modern art, the kind of place where Marcus felt immediately out of place. The receptionist looked up with a practiced smile that faltered slightly when she saw the baby. Marcus Blake, he said. I have a 10 o'clock with Natalie Morrison. The receptionist's eyebrows rose. Clearly this was not a typical appointment, but she made a call. A moment later, she directed him to the 15th floor. The elevator ride felt endless. Sophie was being good, thank God, content to chew on her teething ring and occasionally babble at their reflection in the mirrored walls. "We're gonna be okay, Soph," Marcus whispered to her. "Whatever happens, we're gonna figure it out." The elevator doors opened to a reception area that looked like it belonged in a design magazine. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of Los Angeles. Everything was sleek, expensive, intimidating. "Mr. Blake." A woman in her 30s approached with a warm smile. "I'm Rebecca, Ms. Morrison's assistant. She's ready for you. May I hold your daughter while you meet?" Marcus hesitated. Sophie wasn't great with strangers. "Or," Rebecca added quickly, "there's a small lounge area where she can play if you'd prefer to keep her with you. Ms. Morrison mentioned you might be bringing her." "She mentioned that?" "She's full of surprises." Rebecca's smile suggested this was an understatement. Marcus followed her to a corner office with views that probably cost more per month than his entire apartment. Natalie Morrison stood by the window, talking on a phone, gesturing with her free hand. She was younger than Marcus had expected. Late 30s, maybe, dressed in a sharp pantsuit with dark hair pulled back in a neat bun. She ended her call and turned, her expression softening when she saw Sophie. "You must be Sophie," she said, approaching with her hand extended. "And you're Marcus." Officially this time. Marcus shook her hand, feeling completely surreal. "Ms. Morrison, I don't know how to thank you for last night. That money. Bought formula? Formula, diapers, paid my electric bill that was about to be shut off. And I still have enough left for this month's groceries." Marcus's voice was rough. "You saved us." "No." Natalie's expression was serious. "You saved yourself by being brave enough to ask for help. That takes courage most people don't have." She gestured to a comfortable chair. "Sit. We need to talk business." "I'll be direct," Natalie said, settling into the chair across from Marcus. Sophie had been set down in the lounge area Rebecca had mentioned, surrounded by surprisingly child-friendly toys. "We were going to call you back for a second interview, but we were debating between you and another candidate. Your resume is excellent: Army logistics, construction project management, clear analytical skills. But the other candidate had an MBA from Stanford." Marcus felt his hopes deflating. "I understand. I appreciate you telling me in person. I'm not finished." Natalie leaned forward. "Last night, I saw something in you that no MBA program teaches. Humility, vulnerability, the ability to ask for help when you need it. In venture capital, we invest in people as much as ideas. We need people who can admit when they don't know something, who can be honest about limitations, who can build authentic relationships." She paused. "We also desperately need diversity in this industry. We need people who understand what it's like to struggle, who can recognize potential in founders who don't come from privileged backgrounds. You bring perspective that nobody else on my team has." Marcus's heart was pounding. "Are you offering me the position?" "I'm offering you something better." Natalie pulled out a folder. "Junior analyst position, $75,000 annual salary, full benefits including health insurance. But here's the part one added this morning. On-site childcare. We have a small daycare program for employees' children. Sophie would have a spot, no cost to you." Marcus couldn't breathe. That's not possible. Things like this don't happen. They do when you meet someone at exactly the right moment." Natalie's smile was gentle. "Marcus, I built this firm from nothing. I know what desperation feels like. I know what it's like to need help and be too proud to ask. 10 years ago, I was sleeping on a friend's couch, pitching investors who laughed me out of their offices. Someone took a chance on me when they didn't have to. This is me paying that forward. But you don't even know if I'm good at this job." You served in Army logistics for 6 years. You managed construction projects worth millions of dollars. You're raising a baby alone while trying to rebuild your career. Natalie's voice was firm. You're already doing the hardest job in the world. Learning venture capital will be easy by comparison. Marcus looked through the glass at Sophie, who was happily gumming a soft block. He thought about the empty formula can last night, about choosing between electricity and food, about the crushing weight of feeling like a failure as a father. Yes, he said, his voice cracking. Yes, I accept. The first month was overwhelming. Marcus threw himself into learning everything about venture capital. Reading portfolio reports, sitting in on pitch meetings, analyzing market trends until his eyes burned. He was determined to prove Natalie hadn't made a mistake. Sophie thrived in the daycare. The director, a woman named Carmen with 30 years of experience, sent Marcus photos throughout the day. Sophie napping in a sunbeam, Sophie attempting to crawl, Sophie covered in sweet potato puree and grinning like she'd won the lottery. But it was the little moments that started to blur the line between professional and personal. Like when Natalie stopped by the daycare during lunch and Marcus found her on the floor, reading The Very Hungry Caterpillar to Sophie, who was snuggled against her in complete contentment. Sorry, Natalie said, looking up with an embarrassed smile. Carmen said Sophie was fussy, so I thought I'd. You don't have to apologize, Marcus interrupted. Thank you for checking on her. Or the day Sophie took her first unaided steps, straight toward Natalie during a company meeting. Everyone had stopped talking to watch the baby toddle across the conference room, her arms out for balance, heading directly for the CEO who'd knelt down to catch her. Did everyone see that? Natalie had called out, her voice thick with emotion. Sophie just walked. Marcus, your daughter just walked. The entire office had applauded. Or the evening Marcus was working late on an analysis that was due the next morning, and Natalie appeared with takeout. You missed dinner, she said, setting the bags on his desk. And I'm guessing Sophie needs to be picked up from Carmen soon. I was just finishing. You're finished now. Natalie's tone left no room for argument. Go get your daughter. Spend the evening with her. The analysis can wait until tomorrow. But you said it was urgent. Sophie is more urgent. Natalie met his eyes. I won't be the reason you miss time with your daughter, Marcus. Work will always be here. She's only going to be a baby once. Marcus found himself staring at her, this powerful woman who ran a $400 million firm but still understood what mattered. Why are you being so good to us? Natalie was quiet for a moment. Can I be honest? Please. I'm 38 years old. I've spent the last 15 years building this company. I've sacrificed relationships, friendships, the possibility of having a family of my own. Her voice was soft. Somewhere along the way, I forgot that success isn't just about money or influence. It's about connection. It's about showing up for people. And when I got your text that night, this desperate, honest plea from a stranger, it reminded me what actually matters. What matters? This. She gestured around the office, but Marcus knew she meant something bigger. People helping people. Using whatever resources we have to make someone else's life a little less hard. You gave me that gift, Marcus. You reminded me why I started this company in the first place. 6 months into the job, Marcus was excelling. He'd helped identify 2 promising startups that had joined Catalyst's portfolio. He'd built strong relationships with founders. He was becoming indispensable. But something else was happening too. He started looking forward to the moments when Natalie would stop by his desk. Started paying attention to what made her laugh. Usually Sophie doing something adorably destructive like organizing important documents by throwing them on the floor. Started noticing how her face would light up when she talked about successful exits or founders who'd overcome impossible odds. And he was pretty sure she was noticing him too. The way she'd touch his shoulder when reading over his analysis. The way she'd specifically ask for his input in meetings. The way she'd engineered excuses to visit the daycare when Sophie was there. staying longer than necessary, playing peekaboo until Sophie dissolved into giggles. You know she's in love with you, right? Carmen mentioned casually one day while Marcus was picking Sophie up. Marcus nearly dropped the diaper bag. What? Ms. Morrison. She's in love with you. Carmen smiled. And before you panic, it's mutual. You look at her the same way. Carmen, she's the CEO. I'm her employee. There's like a dozen reasons why. Life is short, Marcus. Carmen handed him Sophie, who immediately reached for his face. And that woman has been alone for as long as I've worked here. You both deserve happiness. Don't overthink it. But Marcus did overthink it. For 3 weeks he wrestled with what to do. The power dynamic was complicated. His gratitude to Natalie was immense. How could he separate genuine feelings from obligation? The answer came on a random Tuesday evening. Marcus was in the office late working on a time-sensitive deal. Sophie was with Rosa for the night. Natalie appeared in his doorway around 8 p.m. You're still here. So are you. She smiled tiredly. Fair point. Want company? They ended up ordering pizza and eating it in the break room, talking about everything except work. Natalie told him about growing up in Boston, about her mother who'd worked 3 jobs to send her to college, about the professors who'd told her venture capital wasn't for women. Marcus told her about Sophie's mother leaving, about the shame he'd felt, about his grandfather's lessons on pride that hadn't prepared him for asking strangers for help at 3 a.m. I'm glad you texted me, Natalie said quietly. Even though it was an accident. Even though you were mortified. I'm glad it was my number. Why? Because I was lonely, Marcus. Successful but lonely. And then you showed up with your baby and your humility and your determination to be better. And suddenly my penthouse didn't feel so empty anymore. Marcus set down his pizza slice. Natalie, I know this is complicated, she interrupted, her words coming faster now. I know I'm your boss. I know there are power dynamics and company policies and a million reasons why I should shut up. But I can't stop thinking about you, about Sophie, about the family you've built for yourselves and how much I want to be part of it. I can't offer you what you deserve, Marcus said, his voice rough. I'm a single father living in a 1-bedroom apartment. I drive a car with 200,000 miles on it. I'm still paying off student loans from a degree I never finished. What could I possibly give you that you don't already have? Natalie reached across the table and took his hand. You could give me a reason to come home at night. You could give me someone who sees me as more than just a bank account or a business opportunity. You could give me Sophie's laugh and your terrible jokes and the chance to be part of something real. What about the company? What about? I'll transfer your reporting structure. You'll work for Richard instead of directly for me. We'll do everything by the book, HR approved and proper. She squeezed his hand. But Marcus, if you feel even a fraction of what I feel, please don't let fear of complications stop us. Marcus looked at their joined hands, thinking about wrong numbers and midnight texts and all the unlikely ways people find each other. I fell for you the moment you sent $300 instead of 30, he admitted. I told myself it was gratitude, but it wasn't. It was you seeing me, really seeing me, when I felt invisible. So what do? We try. Marcus pulled her closer. We try and we see where it goes and we figure it out together. Just like everything else. They kissed there in the break room, surrounded by motivational posters and the hum of the refrigerator, and it felt like the most natural thing in the world. Sophie's first birthday party was held at Natalie's penthouse, which had been slowly transformed over the past 6 months. The minimalist aesthetic now included colorful toys, baby-proofed furniture, and a high chair in the kitchen. Natalie had insisted on hosting, and Marcus had stopped arguing about things like this. The guest list was small but meaningful. Carmen from the daycare, Rebecca the assistant, Marcus's army buddy Jerome and his family, Rosa the neighbor, some colleagues from Catalyst. Natalie had even flown in Marcus's sister Maya from Seattle, secretly arranging everything so it would be a surprise. Sophie sat in her high chair, covered in cake frosting, grinning like she'd invented birthdays. She'd started calling Natalie Nana, her baby attempt at Natalie, and the name had stuck. Nobody corrected her. Speech, Jerome called out, holding up his beer. Marcus stood, suddenly nervous despite the friendly crowd. I'm not great at speeches, he began. But I need to say something. A year ago, Sophie came into my life and turned everything upside down. 6 months ago, I was sitting on my bathroom floor at 3 in the morning, broke and desperate and terrified that I was failing as a father. He looked at Natalie, who was holding Sophie's hand while the baby destroyed a cupcake. And then I sent the wrong text to the right person. And everything changed. Not just financially, though that was life-saving. But Natalie, his voice cracked. You gave us more than money. You gave us hope. You gave us stability. You gave Sophie a person who loves her like she's mine. Natalie finished softly, bouncing Sophie on her knee. Because she is. The room was silent for a beat. Then Maya started clapping, and everyone joined in. Later that evening, after guests had left and Sophie was asleep in the nursery Natalie had set up, Marcus and Natalie stood on the balcony, looking out at the LA lights. I want to adopt her, Natalie said suddenly. Sophie, I want to legally adopt her. I've been thinking about it for months. And Marcus pulled her close. Yes. I didn't finish explaining. You don't need to. Marcus kissed her forehead. You've been her mother in every way that matters since the day we met. Making it legal just makes official what's already true. Natalie's eyes filled with tears. I never thought I'd have this. Family. People to come home to. Someone's birthday party to plan. You have it now. Marcus held her tighter. We both do. Sophie was almost 4 years old when Natalie and Marcus got married. The ceremony was simple, held at a botanical garden with Sophie as the flower girl, though she spent more time chasing butterflies than actually dropping petals. During the vows, Natalie surprised everyone by kneeling down to Sophie's level. Sophie Elizabeth Blake, she said, her voice steady despite the tears. I promise to be your mom in every way that matters. I promise to read you stories and fix your scraped knees and help with homework and embarrass you in front of your future friends. I promise to love you as fiercely as your daddy does. Is that okay with you? Sophie nodded solemnly. Then she threw her little arms around Natalie's neck. Love you, Nana. I love you too, sweet girl. So much. Marcus's vows were simpler. Natalie, you answered a text you could have ignored. You helped a stranger you didn't have to help. You loved a baby who wasn't yours and a man who had nothing to offer but gratitude and hope. Thank you for seeing us when we were invisible. Thank you for choosing us every single day. I promise to spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret answering that wrong number. At the reception, Marcus's grandfather's old friends from South Carolina made the trip, including old Mr. Johnson who'd known Grandpa Joe for 60 years. Your grandfather, Mr. Johnson said, pulling Marcus aside. He'd be proud of you, son, not just because you made it through hard times, but because you were brave enough to ask for help. That's not weakness. That's strength. Grandpa Joe always said a Blake man doesn't beg. Your grandpa also changed his mind about a lot of things before he died. Mr. Johnson smiled. He told me once, near the end, that the strongest thing a man can do is admit he needs help. Wish he'd learned that lesson earlier. As the sun set and fairy lights twinkled overhead, Marcus watched Natalie dance with Sophie, both of them laughing at something private and perfect. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Hey man, this is probably weird, but I'm a single dad going through a rough patch. Any advice? Marcus stared at the message for a long moment. Then he replied, Don't be afraid to ask for help. You never know who's on the other end waiting to answer. And if you need anything, formula, diapers, just someone to talk to, I'm here. We're all in this together. Because that was the truth Marcus had learned. We're all just one wrong number away from exactly where we're supposed to be. One moment of vulnerability away from finding our people. One honest text away from a family we never knew we needed. If this story touched your heart, remember, your lowest moment might be someone else's chance to show up and change both your lives. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Comment about a time a stranger's kindness changed your path. Subscribe for more stories about connection, hope, and the extraordinary ways ordinary people find each other. Sometimes the wrong number is exactly the right person. Sometimes 3 a.m. is exactly the right time. Sometimes asking for help is the bravest thing you can do. Your miracle might be waiting on the other end of a text you're too afraid to send. Don't let fear win.